it is my pet peeve when someone says, well, that's the way it's always been done. And my response to anyone who says that is, I didn't get here by doing what everyone else did.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of High Stakes with Steve Rozenberg. Happy to have you here today, and my guest and good friend, Ashley Wilson. Ashley, thanks so much for being here today. It's first of all, it's great to see you. It's been a long time, so it's great seeing you.
It's great seeing you too, and it's my honor to be here, Steve, with you.
Oh, well, thank you. It's very kind. For people that don't know who Ashley Wilson is, what you've done, your kind of claim to fame or resume, why don't you tell people who you are, what you do?
I've done a little bit of everything. So I started in corporate America. I started in clinical research and development for three major pharmaceutical companies, Sanofi, Aventis, Wyeth, which is now owned by Pfizer, and GlaxoSmithKline. I finished my career there working in vaccine division as the director of global project management. And I worked on all different types of vaccines, even pandemic. So I've had a lot of not only corporate experience, but also medical side, the medical field, and understanding how regulatory bodies work in different countries. And then after that, I actually left that career. I followed my husband's career, which took us to Europe and Russia, along with many other states in the US, because he was a professional hockey player. And I started a real estate business with my father, flipping houses and doing high-end flips, and then transitioned into commercial real estate. Most recently, I launched a tech company. I've also written a book, and I speak all over the country. So I've kind of done a little bit of everything. It probably looks like it doesn't make sense, but there are a lot of breadcrumbs along the way that tell the whole story. I believe one thing that's a superpower of mine that's connected all of those things is my ability to work virtually. I don't think that any aspect of my entire professional career was exclusively face to face. It was almost always virtually. So I'm pretty good at communicating, setting up systems, organizing teams in a virtual capacity.
That is a lot. I didn't know your background from the vaccine world, which that's probably another conversation. This show is all about high stakes, right? It's about the mental aspect of you, kind of like a high elite athlete, but now we're looking at the high elite entrepreneur. So let me just ask you, what would you say is one of the most pivotal decisions that you've made, whether it's in business or in life? Maybe giving up your career to go with your husband, Kyle, and travel as he was a professional hockey player. But what is something that you made you planted your flag and said, this is a huge shift in who I am and what I'm doing?
I don't know if there's ever been I know it sounds like on paper that there's been a huge shift in who I am, but I think I've always stayed true to who I was. I've always been someone who bet on myself. I don't think I've ever had that insecurity of not thinking that everything is figure-outable. So, for example, in high school, I went to an all boys high school, and there were only about 60 plus or minus of us women my sophomore year of the entire school. So it was almost 4-to-1 odds. That I think is a pivotal moment in my life in terms of being outnumbered in some sort of capacity, but then also not really playing victim to it. I leaned into it. I really am comfortable with who I am, and I think over my life I've just gotten better at knowing myself, and I think that's one of the things that really helps you on any path is knowing yourself, knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses, knowing your blind spots, and identifying good talent to surround yourself with. So anytime that I've made a change in my life, I always ensured that I had enough knowledge beforehand and a support system to make it a successful venture. And success is defined differently, obviously, to everyone. I mean, success for me also includes what other people would call failures, but I don't ever believe there's any failure in life. So I think going to that all boys school, going back and looking back on that, the majority of my elementary and middle school friends went to that school. It was a feeder school. So I had a really good support system going into that school and felt confident going into that school that I could be myself. And that is what I continued to do along my career. In pharma, I left pharma when I felt like I wasn't myself anymore. I felt like I was not cut out to be a corporate employee. I was cut out to be an entrepreneur, and I leaned into that. So I think there are a lot of things that have happened along my life that outsiders may look and say, wow, that was a huge monumental shift in Ashley's trajectory. But to me, it's been a logical next step.
So you bring up a good point. And the word that came to mind when you were talking about it was identity. And to me at least. And when you were talking about going to school and then shifting to being in the pharmaceutical, and then shifting for the entrepreneur, you've almost shifted identities, in my opinion, of who you are, right? And then in the evolution of entrepreneurship and real estate, you've evolved as well. Do you think, I look at identity shifting as kind of like the way a snake would shed their skin, right? You're shifting, you're becoming a new person, you're evolving, right? When you did that identity shift, was it from big pharma to entrepreneur? What kind of doubt or what went through your mind going through this process? Was it a mathematical thing? Was it an emotional thing? Like, because there's many people that have careers and they're thinking, this is it. Like this is my life. This is not what I thought it would be. Kind of like you had said, and you took action, and maybe it was scary, maybe it was logical. But what would you say to people that are maybe at that precipice right now, thinking, I need to shift?
There are a couple things that I look back on that experience. The first, most notably, is I started to realize that I didn't want to see any of my coworkers in a social setting because my persona at work versus my informal persona, so to speak, were two completely different people. And that only like expanded in terms of differentiation as time went on, and you had to put up this persona of like, I'm a work hard party hard person, but in corporate America it's only work hard. And the reason corporate America attracted me in the first place is because I did not grow up wealthy. I grew up pretty poor despite going to private school, but I was always on scholarship. So I was surrounded by these very affluent people. And I figured if I became CEO of a pharma company one day, a top five pharma company, that was my goal, that I would be able to control my life and control my time freedom. But what in reality happened, it was the golden handcuff. And the harder I worked, I was on a trajectory to be a CEO of a major pharmaceutical company. I was one of the youngest, highest up people within pharma that I knew across multiple companies. But that came at a cost, and that almost jeopardized my entire relationship with Kyle. There were times where I was literally working from 6 a.m. until 1 a.m., 7 days a week. That's just not sustainable individually, but then also when you want to build relationships. So there were things that I was trading off that I wasn't realizing. It's that old saying, you're climbing a ladder to only get to the top and realize it was on the wrong wall. And there's the other aspect that when I was seeing things that I ethically did not agree um, with respect to this one company that I was working for at the time, and it wasn't a top three pharma company, it was another company that I was working with at the time, it also pushed me out and made me challenge myself and say, like, is this who I really am? And I'm not that person. So I wanted to make a shift, and I wanted to make a shift in a way that played on my strengths. At a very young age, I exhibited, when you look back, I exhibited multiple signs of entrepreneurialism spirit. We in fifth grade we had this check lesson, like learning how to write checks, and we had to rent desks from our teacher, and it was all fake money, obviously. But the one day I went in and said, "You have a monopoly. You're requiring us to rent these desks from you." So for the next few recess, I made an agreement with our janitor at our school. I cleaned desks out of like an area of spillover area where these desks were, and then I rented these desks to my classmate, and I ended up winning the entire section of this class on check writing because of the fact that I figured out a way to be more entrepreneurial, and then I saw that firsthand, and then it just built from there in terms of my confidence to explore ideas. So I would pause here though, because one of the reasons I do think that I have found success is because I have found the brakes to my gas, and that's Kyle. I call him my dream crusher because I'm coming up with ideas faster than I can even think through the entire idea. And Kyle crushes probably 99.9% of the ideas I come up with. So, respecting someone in your circle to provide that guidance on what is a good idea, what's a well vetted idea, what's an idea to take a risk on, I think is also important without compromising your confidence in coming up with the ideas in the first place.
So a couple questions on this. It's funny you mentioned the dream crusher. I think every business has the visionary, which obviously what you are and what I am. Then you have the integrator, and the integrator is the one that basically my business partner Pete, when we had our last business, we used to call him the no monster because everything out of his mouth, the first answer was no, and then I would convince him or I would sell him on the idea, and it got to the point that I got so good at selling and closing. He would say, "Just tell me what you want because I know you're going to get it. So let's just cut to the chase and get this over with." And I'd say, "This is what I want." He's like, "Okay, I'll make it happen." So we came to an agreement. But I think you're right. I think every business needs that seesaw of both. You can't have one. We used to say if it was up to me, we'd have $10 million in revenue and it would be chaos everywhere. If it was up to him, he'd have $1,000 in revenue, but it would run perfectly and nobody would talk to anyone, and it would be systematic every single month, and there'd be no qualms about it. So we would meet somewhere in the middle, basically, is what we did. Um, so I have a question because this is relevant to you with your background. What false belief do you think you were fed, not only in school, but then into corporate America, that once you all of a sudden went into the entrepreneurial world, you're like, that was a freaking lie. Like, that was not true. That was a false belief that cost me. I believe you're going to pay either in time or money, right? And a lot of times in anything in life, time or money is the biggest inhibitor. And normally we tend to waste the thing that we value the least, which is our time.
Mhm.
We'll hoard money and we'll waste time, which is opposite of what successful people do. But I'm curious from your perspective, what is something that you were taught or believed that was a false belief about money and time and being successful that was not true?
Everything associated with following the herd, that it's always been done this way. It is my pet peeve when someone says to me, um, well, that's the way it's always been done. And my response to anyone who says that is, I didn't get here by doing what everyone else did, which is true. Like when people look at my resume, I've only told you a snapshot, but other things involved. I was a Division 1 athlete that got a full scholarship. I am a national champion horseback rider. I have a family. I am doing all of these other entrepreneurial investments and advisories, and I have multiple companies. And the only reason that I've been able to achieve all of this is because I did not do what everyone else did. And it irks me to no end to think that a system could be so perfect and a process can be so perfect that there can't be another way or a better way. There's this thing in riding that we say that there's a lot of different ways you can train a horse, but you can still end up at the same outcome. And at the end of the day, the individuality of the horse and the trainer and the rider, it's a team and it's a partnership. So, despite the fact that we all end up potentially at the same outcome, it doesn't mean that you could have taken a different process and applied it to that same team and they would have achieved the same outcome, because that team might need different variables to get to that final point. So I am a firm believer that when someone says, oh, well, you should invest in 80% stocks and 20% bonds, you should invest in your IRA, you should do matching, you should, work and be loyal to a company, you should do all of the things that everyone else is doing. Look where everyone else is. Everyone else is pretty miserable with their career. They dread Sunday nights because Monday morning is the worst day of the week. They post all the time on Facebook problems and memes about their company and their job and all of these different issues they're having. And ultimately, they're not happy and they don't want to take action to get themselves out of being not happy. They're happy not being happy. And I am really cognizant of how I spend my time, who I spend my time with, and who I'm listening to. And if the person that you're listening to is not where you ultimately want to be, why are you listening to them? Why are you surrounding yourselves with them? Why are you investing your time? As you just said, times, you said it more eloquently than I can say right now, but our time is our most valuable asset, yet we treat it the worst. And I think that that is something that I've heard time and time again, that it's just something that we're supposed to do. It's the way it's always been done, and it frustrates me to no end to see it in action and then to also hear it from people.
Yeah. Now, I would regard you as a successful person, entrepreneur. You and your husband are in many different ventures, which we'll tap into. What do you think is more important in your mind, your habits or your standards?
Oh, what a good question. Oh my gosh. Wow. Um I'm going to take the cop out answer and say habits, because habits can be inclusive of your standards. So I think they're both equally important, but I think that you cannot underestimate the importance of showing up every single day. And I think that's built into your habits.
Yeah, and I think they kind of interweave, because I think that we train to the level of our habits, but we fail to the level of our standards.
Mhm.
And so I think it's not a trick question, but I think you need both. I think your standards are what, when you are, your back's against the wall, you will fall to your highest standard. And that's the level. I'm sure as an entrepreneur, in real estate and other things going on right now, you've probably had fear creep in. You've probably had
Mhm.
doubt creep in. I am a big believer, and I've learned this, and this is something that I had to accept. I had to understand that fear is not always bad. When fear and doubt creep in, that is sometimes the sign that we're on the right path. We just assume that pit of the stomach feeling means we've got to pull it back a little bit. But I started realizing every time I was fearful, that is when I was about to break through to
Yes.
something better. So I'm curious, when you've had that fear and doubt, which way do you go?
That's a great question. I think a lot of it is rooted. I was a psych major, so there's a lot of studies done on fear and how fear um, guides and misguides people when it's used incorrectly. But when it's used correctly and what you're talking about is the most powerful execution of the utilization of fear, is understanding why you're fearful and whether or not that's a cautionary do not pass go, or if it's an indicator of a change in routine. We just talked about habits. One of the things that happens on a breakthrough is a change in routine. And by nature, humans are very routine in their day to day living and even their business conduct. So pushing the envelope, and I feel like with visionaries, we are less into routine than integrators. But by
Correct.
and large, I think we can all agree that our society trains more integrators than visionaries. We want more people to graduate and be integrators. So there's this kind of social norm, so to speak, of these integrators floating around thinking that this is the way everyone should be. So we should be cautious whenever fear is in front of us or we feel fear. But fear can be an extremely powerful tool to prepare you for something even greater than you knew you were possible of achieving.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: when you take all this and you put it together, right? I believe that everything that we do in life is to create a business, right? An entity structure that runs without us so that we can go have time to go create memories, family, loved ones, and live the life that we want. And I think a lot of people get stuck in that part of being busy and they start identifying with what they do. Like, you and I go to real estate events and I talk to people and I ask what they do. And the first thing they say is, oh, I am a flipper. I am a wholesaler. I'm like, no, no, you're a business owner. That
Mhm.
business is supposed to get you somewhere. It's kind of like saying, I'm a car. No, no, the
Yep.
car gets you to the beach so that you can go and enjoy time with your family. For you, when it comes to family, freedom, what kind of legacy are you trying to build? Is this something you're going to pass down? Is this something you're trying to build for you and Kyle? Like what are you trying to build with all this work, everything you're doing, the hours you guys put in? What's it for?
When I alluded to this earlier, when I was growing up, I was surrounded by all of these wealthy families. But what I realized wasn't their wealth. What I realized was the presence of their parents at every single event. My parents were both working class. My mom worked for a small business. My dad was self employed. He's a contractor. He still is a contractor. But they prioritized being there for us. They never missed a single event. And the whole reason I wanted to make all of this money was to ensure that I would never miss a single thing for my family. If my kids they were sick, they needed me to attend a field trip or anything, I wanted to be able to have the freedom to be there for them. I am not building any of this to pass down to our kids. We're using it as tools to teach our kids about the power of entrepreneurship and owning businesses and operating businesses, and using that as power and the vehicle, so to speak, to use your terminology, the vehicle to get you to what you ultimately want. But what we ultimately want, Kyle and I, is to be present with our family, to make memories with our family. That's the legacy we want to live, is to be very active in our kids' lives. And that's why we're doing all of this. So there's really, as business owners, there's two ways to build to operate or build to sell. So yes, we're operators, right? And we're known for our operations, but we don't ever want to be in a position where the business is tied exclusively to us. It's a business that we can ultimately sell, businesses that we can position ourselves in ways that we're replaceable. And that's because of the reason that our ultimate goal in life is just to spend more time with our family.
Would you say, in all honesty, you're living up to that right now?
I think we're doing a really good job of doing it. Obviously, it's all perspective. I'm not a person that believes in all of this excess. So, some could argue, well, you can homeschool and then you can travel the world and do something like that. For us, that's not something that we want to do. There's different levels of spending time with your family. I think there's a very healthy nature of our kids going to school and interacting with their friends their age, learning how to communicate and things like that.
No, I agree. When you have your different business entities and operations, um, do you guys have triggers, and have you had to execute on those triggers when it's like this is not working? Whether it's now real estate is obviously harder to untangle, but partnerships, people, do you guys have set triggers that said this is cancerous, we're cutting this out, we're cutting
Mhm.
off the leg type thing? Have you Do you guys have those, and have you had to implement?
Yes. Short answer is yes. Literally right before this conversation, I was on a call with some of the team members from Conference Connect. There's a process that we're doing which wasn't working. And I literally said to the team, I said, don't wait for me to notice it isn't working. If you're noticing it isn't working, let's stop now because we are in growth mode right now. So the problem only becomes more unmanageable as we continue to grow. So we need to figure out this problem right now, strip it down, figure out like high level what is the ultimate goal we're trying to achieve and build building blocks that support that ultimate goal. So we spent an hour this morning redoing an entire process because of that. But we have triggers in every single business. We have red flags that come up. There's certain KPIs we look at within real estate that signify that things are not working, and different measures are put in place. We do internal audits even when things are working because once again it's perspective. If I think something's working right, it's there's always a way that it could be done better. So we're always doing internal audits of our processes, of our financials, of our systems, of the vendors we use, contractors we use. I mean, you name it, we're always trust but verify across all of the businesses.
So, how do you keep the outside noise from getting inside your head? Whether it's real estate, and we all know all the drama and stuff that's going on with it, and you may be fine. I don't know, but like, how do you stop that static and stay steady? Because I believe, and this is some of my training as an airline pilot, that it may be going to shit around you, but everyone is looking to you, and they're looking at your actions, and they're going, "Is it going to be okay?" They just want to see that nod. And even if deep down you're going, I don't know what's going to happen, they're looking to you as that leader. So how are you that person they look to? Is it Kyle? Is it someone else in the operation? And is that something you guys work on and discuss?
It's definitely me that they look to. Kyle and Jay will tell you that in a heartbeat, that they always look to me for any issue that we have to make sure that things are okay. I am a researcher by nature, so I don't get intimidated by any. This is not where my blind spot is. This is not my downfall. This is something that I'm pretty strong at, which is in a sea of chaos, I remain calm. I don't get frazzled. I don't get like negative self-talk. I don't do anything. I literally just say, well, there's got to be a way. It just circles back to like what I was talking about earlier. There's always a way. There's always a way. And I just have to fail as fast as possible because if I fail as fast as possible, I'm getting closer to the solution quicker than everyone else. Right. So I'm trying and tweaking, trying and tweaking, trying and tweaking, and learning from every single thing that I'm doing, which is why I think I'm strong in operations because I've had a lot of lessons learned along the years and I've been able to take that knowledge. And one of the things that I think when people work with me say that I'm strong at is I'm able to take all of the details and nuances and then be able to put all of the pieces together and see the whole puzzle at once, which in multifamily, just specifically to multifamily, there have been less than like people on one hand that I can count that I can literally converse with every single aspect of multifamily on a high level. Like
Right.
seriously, probably only two people I can think of that I can actually converse high level on every single aspect from acquisitions to loans to underwriting, operating and more, right? But I think where I hear the noise, what you were saying, where my downfall is being a visionary, I think I get very distracted often from all of these opportunities that are thrown at me, and staying focused on what I'm doing, because the only thing that like really gets in my head is, am I executing on the thing that gets me to my ultimate goal the fastest, right? So I told you my ultimate goal is spending more time with my family. So is it through real estate? Is it through tech? Is it through some other venture, right? And that's the thing that I think distracts me and gets in my head, but it's not the state of multifamily, right? It's not all of those things, because I feel like we've done a really good job preparing for anything that can be thrown at us.
How do you deal when somebody you come up with this great idea, you're like, we're going down this path, and Kyle the no monster says no. How do you guys find that happy balance? Because you've got the husband wife thing, right? So it's not just the business. I'll see you Monday. It's like, what are we doing for dinner? And how do you guys collaborate on this to be solution based, as opposed to planting your flag as to what you're I say so, so we're doing it kind of thing.
Well, that's why we have a couch. No.
Nice. Let's have a conversation.
I'm just kidding. Honestly, that's really tough for me. It's really, really tough for me because Kyle is a very pragmatic person, and
Yeah,
he's very logical in the way he thinks. And I wouldn't say I'm an emotional person, but definitely more emotional than Kyle is. So I don't I don't take what he says as like he's attacking me. I take them personally because I'm passionate about what I'm doing, right?
right.
And he sees things from a different angle all the time. So it comes up often. I mean, I disagree with so Jay Scott is another partner of mine, and there's another gentleman named Cal who's also another partner. And I honestly think we have the perfect balance between the four of us, because um we're polarizing on different topics. So it allows there to be balance across all topics, because there's always, four different angles we're kind of looking at things.
Sure.
But by and large, they always say that I get told no the most, but I'm the person who has the ultimate say, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I do listen to them a lot. So it hurts to hear the things that they say, like, especially when I come up with an idea and I've worked through the idea in my head. It does hurt, but I think, you told a story at the beginning where you said you just got really good at sales, right? And it's about kind of learning your audience too. So I am better at crafting what I think they'll go for, which makes it a stronger idea in the first place. So that helps.
Listen, for the integrators out there, the C's in the disc profile, what a lot of people don't realize is, in every conversation, someone is selling and someone is getting sold. And if you don't think so, guess who's getting sold in the
Yeah.
conversation? And it's really, when I say selling, I don't mean monetarily. I am convincing you of my position, and I am getting you to agree on what I think, or we're meeting somewhere. But if you want Mexican and Kyle wants Italian, someone is getting sold on where we're going to dinner, right?
Yep.
And so, whether it's the kids cleaning their room, whatever it is, every single conversation, it's like a football game. Someone is winning and someone is losing. That's just how it is. And for anyone to think differently, they're the ones that are getting sold. That's
Yeah.
just that's reality. So just a couple of questions I have at the end as we wrap up here. What is a personal non-negotiable that you have that you will never bend on?
Work ethic.
Okay. All right. Tell
If
me,
someone
explain
has a
explain
bad
why.
work ethic or ethics, morals, those are non-negotiables. Um, so I don't think I've ever partnered with someone that I haven't known for at least a year. I feel like knowing someone through different cycles of life is really important. Um, you mentioned before our standards. Well, we all have a standard of when we would steal. I would steal if my kids needed food. I would gladly steal. I would steal if my kids were sick. We all have a standard of where that line is drawn. I'm not judging anyone on what that standard is. I just want to know what it is, and I want to see if it matches with my standards. Jay, I trust him with my life, and I always say Jay's the type of guy that you leave your wallet on on the table, walk away, and you come back and there's more money in it. That's who Jay is.
Yeah.
And I think that also another thing on partnership, just real quickly, I know this isn't what you asked, but I think it's really important, is I think people underestimate the importance of someone's financial position in partnership, because I think if people have different financial situations, they make decisions differently, and that all ties into their standards on where they're at. So knowing and having those conversations is not something people normally do with a partnership. Jay and I did that from day one. And I think having that trust and knowing that someone will keep that confidential, but also understanding someone's financial position also knows how their decisions are governed.
Yeah, I think finance money has an emotional pull, even though money only has the power we give it, right? If we had a business that was doing $100 million and we saw a $10 bill on the ground and we were late, we may not stop and pick it up. We may not even really notice it. But if we were homeless, we would jump on it like a grenade. Same $10. It's just, we gave it a different perspective of value. So I agree. Money has a very, very strong identity and emotional shift depending on the perspective and the value you give it. So I think that's great to have that conversation. Besides the book that you wrote, what is a book that changed your mindset forever, that now that is kind of the cornerstone of what you think of?
There are a couple books. I'll just rattle them off real quickly. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Inner Excellence, hands down the best book I have ever read. It took me forever to read it because it is so rich in content. The Giving Tree and Traction. So those are my four books.
Cool. Yeah. What is your current obsession right now? Whether it's business or personal, what are you obsessed with?
I'll just be honest. The flood situation in Texas, my heart is just torn in a million pieces. I think in part having kids at the same age just puts a whole different perspective on life, and it's just so devastating. I can't get it out of my head, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a very tragic thing, and yeah, prayers go out to them. Last question. At the end of the day, if you were not in a room and people were talking about you, what would you want them saying?
I would want them to say that she always does right by other people.
Oh, I like that. Does the right thing. I like that. Yeah. One of my core values for my company, my team, is doing the right thing for the right reasons. Whether anyone's watching, whether anyone knows, whether you tell them or not, it's a matter of doing the right thing for the right reasons. I think that's great. Well, listen, Ashley, obviously it is great to see you. If somebody wants to get a hold of you and see all the different things that you have going on, you got Conference Connect, you've got real estate, you've got your book. It's a lot. Where do they go and find you?
On Instagram at Bad Ash Investor.
Bad Ash Investor. I love it. I love it. All right, Ashley. Well, hey, thank you so much for being on High Stakes with Steve Rozenberg. Really appreciate it. It's good catching up with you again, and look forward to seeing where you've got going, where you're heading, you and Kyle and Jay and everyone else. Just a great group of people, and you've definitely surrounded yourself with like-minded, intentional, ethical people, which is awesome. For those of you watching, if you like this episode, make sure you press the like button, subscribe. If you know someone who needs to hear this, needs to hear what Ashley has to say, share this out to people, because this is how we pay the bills, is by people sharing this out and people liking this, commenting, and just kind of consuming this community, because that's what this is about. So On behalf of Ashley and myself, I want to thank everyone for watching, listening, and being a part of High Stakes with Steve Rozenberg. And we will see you